Hey everyone, back with the next anti-post selections for the upcoming Cheltenham Festival. I think we're on to about bet number 12 at the minute. Got a couple for you today, and the first one that we're going to get straight into is the Gold Cup, the main event of the festival, the one that everybody looks forward to. And I finally managed to dig out who I think is going to be the winner of this one. Let's have a look at the Gold Cup stats. So we've got a 3 mile, 2.5 furlong race on the new course for 5-year-olds plus. 5-year-olds get a £2 allowance and mares get a £7 allowance. 11 out of 12 winners have been aged 7 to 9. So that's your bracket, roughly where you need to be. Only 4 out of 12 favourites have won. In the last 6 years, there's only been one favourite won in the last 6 years, and that was Don Cossack in 2016. 10 out of 12 won their last race before Cheltenham, so form going into Cheltenham is quite important. Out of the winners that have won last time out, 3 of those had won the King George and 3 of them had won the Denman Chase. So those 2 races proved to be quite good. Unfortunately, I don't think that will marry up this year with obviously the winner of those said races. 6 out of 12, so half the horses had a previous win at Cheltenham, and 11 out of 12 had previously won at 3 miles plus. So obviously somebody stepping straight up to Gold Cup distance doesn't tend to do as good. Ratings, 9 out of the 12 winners have been rated 166 or higher. If you take the two of them that were under 166, one was last year in Albion Photo, rated 164, and 2 years earlier in 2017, Sizing John was also rated 164. Those horses obviously went on to be rated a hell of a lot higher, so the majority of them are right up to that late 160s bracket. Looking at those, obviously we've got a favourite this year in Albion Photo who's a defending champion. But just looking at those who've won the race and come back to defend it the year after, we've got Native River won, came back the next year, which was last year, and finished 4th. Lord Windermere won it in 2014, was pulled up the year after. Bobsworth won it in 13, was 5th the year after. Long Run in 11 was 3rd the year after. Imperial Commander 10 won it in 2010, came back and was pulled up the year after. Corto Star won it in 2009 and fell the year after. So defending champions haven't really done very well in this race as a average. And with that, we get straight on to have a look through the card. Like I said, Albion Photo heads the market here and comes in as our favourite for the race. Obviously won the race last year, and so far this year has come out, won his seasonal reappearance in, to be fair, a pretty easy race. He was running against not a very big field basically, and his closest rivals were rated early 150s, so it wasn't the hardest race for him. However, he did win the race, won it convincingly, ran an RPR of 175, which is decent. Won the Gold Cup, like I say, last year on Good to Soft. Been back and watched that race back 2 or 3 times while doing this, to watch different horses closely. And to be honest, he didn't jump that well, which is quite a thing to say for a horse that went on and actually won the race. But particularly late on in the race, he got in close to a few, and it was only the fact that he'd been given a pretty cool ride all the way around that he had plenty left in the tank after the last to power up the hill and power away to victory. But it didn't jump as good as when I went back, as good as I actually remembered, or seemed to remember that he had done. So that's one thing to bear in mind. After Albion Photo, there's a few close in behind. These aren't necessarily in order, but we've got Bristol de May here, who I believe is a decent price this year, 50 to 1 for Bristol de May. I really like this horse, really like it in general. Was third last year. You know, everybody says that Bristol de May is a haydock specialist. Well, I think the third that Bristol de May ran last year shows that he's not just a haydock specialist. It was a really good run, and ran at haydock on his seasonal reappearance, where he was narrowly beaten by about 1.5 lengths, excuse me, by Lost in Translation. Now, the only difference between Bristol de May not winning that race and Lost in Translation winning it was that Lost in Translation had already had a run in. Bristol de May had to go straight to haydock without a previous run. And I think if he'd had a previous run, I reckon he would have beat Lost in Translation that day. Like I say, it was a 1.5 length win. Jumped really well on that day. And like I say, I think it was just the running, the previous run that Lost in Translation had had. After Cheltenham last year, he did disappoint at Aintree, but I believe he'd just run an absolute belter at Cheltenham. And that race just coming 4 weeks afterwards, he probably had to have a week's rest, I would have said afterwards, where he wouldn't have done a lot. And I just think it had taken its toll on him. I don't think they had enough time to get Bristol de May totally primed up for Aintree, and I can forgive him that race after running a bit of a blinder. And I think at 50 to 1, I think he's a cracking price for somebody who would be wanting to stick an each-way bet on. At Haydock, on his reappearance, he ran an RPR of 176, which is cracking for a reappearance. So that's one I'm keen on. We've got Clanderzobo in there as well, another horse that I really like. Really good looking horse, this one. He's in at a short 8 to 1, best priced at the minute with Betfair, and has obviously won the King George at Kempton on Boxing Day, winning by 21 lengths over the field with Surname in behind. A bit further back was Footpad, and then Lost in Translation was pulled up that day on a course that didn't suit. Also had ASO in there. That was on 3 miles soft. Finished 5th last year, 11 lengths behind the winner Albone Photo. Finished really well. Just always seems to fall short, both at Cheltenham and generally on left-handed courses. It's quite a well-known thing that doesn't have a very good record at all on left-handed courses, and that is worrying. It's worrying that because of how much better that he is of right-handed courses. If this was a right-handed course, I'd probably be backing Clanderzobo, but because it's left-handed and at Cheltenham, I think the 5th that he finished last year is about the best we're going to get. So 8 to 1, I won't be touching that. Then on to Lost in Translation, who we've already mentioned a couple of times. Was pulled up the last day at Kempton on a course that clearly didn't suit. It was well documented leading into that race that they didn't think that course would suit. And to be honest, I don't really know why they run Lost in Translation there. I would have found a better track and just avoided the race. So that day was pulled up. Beat, as we've already said, he beat course specialist Bristol de May at Haydock, where Bristol de May has a brilliant record, and he came up and won that race. Like I said, I believe that's because of the race that he'd already had in, whereas Bristol de May hadn't, but still did his job, got up and won, was sat out the back, really switched off, was given a belting ride, came through, and to be honest, looked as though he was going to cruise home 2 out, and didn't quite cruise home as much as you would have thought. So, but yeah, got up and won. He's obviously stepping up for his first Gold Cup. Has had a couple of good runs at Cheltenham, and I think could be right in the mix there. Lost in Translation is also best priced at 8 to 1 at the minute. I say at the festival last year, ran in the JLT, was second behind Defi de Soy, previously beat Defi de Soy in the Dipper race, but Defi de Soy came back and beat him twice later on in that season. So yeah, that's one that I think will go close. And I'm just going to turn the page, get some more selections up. we'll have a look at. And we have got presenting Percy, who was really well fancied, really well backed last year. A Cheltenham preview night I did, I clearly stated that I couldn't believe everybody was all over this horse after the preparation it had been given. I don't care if, it had gone to Cheltenham once before, I think, with only one run in the season. It was the weirdest run leading into a Gold Cup you could imagine, and I really didn't fancy presenting Percy. I think they'll get a better prep in this year. He's already ran. I think they'll get a better prep in this year, and he could run a better race. I still don't fancy presenting Percy to win. I haven't seen anything that makes me want to take him. He's 11-1, best priced at the minute, and his seasonal reappearance was at Punchestown and finished third behind Min. That was over 2 mile 4. Obviously could do with further than that nowadays. But then had a really poor run when he was 5th of 8 at Leopardstown, only running an RPR of 165, actually rated 169. Yeah, and that was unyielding, which I think was probably the reason for that. All his form is on soft or worse. His form on soft or worse actually reads 3-1-1, 2-1-1, 3-1-1. So not been out the top 3 on soft. We don't obviously know what ground we're going to get. But you could easily see it being good to soft at Cheltenham. And I just don't fancy presenting Percy, to be honest. Got a couple of entries in. He's got an Irish Gold Cup entry. If he goes out and wins that, obviously his odds are going to come in and it might be made to look a bit daft. But for now, anti-post bets, I'm leaving him alone. Another horse that I really like is Native River. Now 10-year-old Colin Tizard's horse. Won this in 2018. Didn't go to plan last season. All runs were on good to soft or good, which doesn't, again, particularly suit Native River. We all know that he needs a lot of giving the ground. And if it was to turn up heavy at the track on Cheltenham, you could never write him off. He's getting a little bit towards the back end of his career now, at 10-year-old, but you can't write Native River off just yet. His seasonal reappearance at Aintree, it might have only been a 4-runner race, but him and Mike Bite went like the clappers. They really fought to get out in front. And I think he actually made Mike Bite run that quick for himself. He forced the error that eventually caused Mike Bite to, wasn't really a fall, he just unseated the rider and left him way out in front, eventually winning by 30 lengths. So I think it was a cracking race by Native River that day. And he ran a RPR of 174, which will be right up there in the mix if he gets that at the Gold Cup. Probably only needs to run around a 178, 179 to be up with winning the race. So I really, really like that. Other than that, there's quite a few long shots in there. Our trainer, who, as I've said to you before, we've got a couple of horses with Phil Kirby. He's got Topville Ben in there. That'll be at a very big price. I think Topville is currently at about 66-1. He'll obviously have to improve to get up there and be in the mix with this race, but it's not beyond his capabilities. He's a lovely horse. His owners are fantastic people. It couldn't happen to nicer lads, a nicer group of people if this horse was to romp up and even get a place at the festival. But I'll be wishing them all the best, and I'll definitely be having a bet on Topville Ben. That'll be from the heart, that bet, more than anything else, to be honest. But the horse, if Phil and the guys weren't to have Topville Ben in this race, looking at it, I'll be having that bet as a side bet. But as my anti-post selections for you guys, the horse I'm going to be putting up to you is one of my favourite horses in training, and that comes in the form of Kenboy. I fully believe, and I know it's easy to say, if he hadn't have unseated his rider at the first last year, I think he'd have served it up to Albone Photo, and I think we will be looking at a defending champion. Kenboy, like I say, one of my favourite horses in training. His record is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm just going to bring up, currently best priced at 13-2 is Kenboy. So if I can just bring him up on my stats thing here. So Yep, solid running fourth on his seasonal reappearance at Leopardstown in December, 3 lengths behind the winner Delta Work. Ran a cracker that day, just needed the run basically. Still ran what was his RPR that day? He ran an RPR ran an RPR of 166. Like I say, he just tired. It was as simple as that, really. But yeah, love this horse. Before this, he was 6 from 7. He'd won 6 of his last 7. He's only been in this race last year, where he jumped the first, and you couldn't really tell from the camera angle, but he didn't seem to make any obvious errors. He just slipped after about 2 strides after the hurdle, and unfortunately, unseated Danny Mullins, I think, rode him that day. He's ran RPRs of 177 and 178 after the festival at Aintree and Punchestown. At Aintree, beating Clanders Oboe, Road to Respect, Bristol Domain more, and more importantly, his Punchestown run, he beat Albone Photo and Monolene behind that. So that was the Punchestown Gold Cup. He's currently 13-2 best price with only one bookie, which is William Hill, and is 6-1 thereafter. I really like Ken Boy, and I'm gonna have a bit of a go on him. If this anti-post money, I'm gonna put £40 on Ken Boy at 6-1. So that is my selection for the Gold Cup this year. Ken Boy, 6-1. Okay, and then we move on to the next race, which is one I've missed more than anything. I have been on this horse in this race since the beginning of December, and in fact since the end of November. I've had all my stats done, I've had everything done and written out for this race since probably the first video that I did, and I've just forgot to put it up. So I might try and check a couple of the odds, because like I say, these could be 2 or 3 weeks old, and I don't know if any of them have run in the meantime. I'll try and figure it out as I go along. But yeah, if these odds have changed slightly, I'll correct it, especially for my pick mainly, to make sure I'm putting that up at the right odds. This is in the Champion Bumper. I don't know if I just said that. A 2 mile, half a furlong for 4 to 6 year olds on the old course. We have £7 off for mares and fillies, and 4 year olds also get what do we get there? We get £8 off for 4 year olds as well. So 11 out of 12 of the winners have been 5 or 6. So 4 year olds have only won this once. Only 2 favourites have won this in the last 12 years, and only 5 have been in the top 3 of the betting. So this is a good one to usually chuck up a big price winner. That being said, if I remember rightly, recently, there we are. So, the favourite won it last year in the form of Envoy Allen, and then we had a big price winner before that, but then the 2 years before that, it was third favourite, second favourite, and favourite before that. So recently, they've started to get the betting a bit more right on this race. But before that, there's always, I mean, if you look from 2010 onwards, it was a 40-1 winner, 14-1, 16-1, 25-1, 16-1. So we had a run there of some really big price winners. And then in 2018, Relegate was another big price winner at 25-1. So you can find value in this race. And I think there's value to be had this year. So 12 out of 12, all winners had won in the last race before the festival. And 11 out of 12 had won over 16 to, ran over the distance or further. And 9 out of 12 had at least 2 runs. Ratings wise, all of them were rated a minimum of 118, all the winners. and of late, 4 of the last 5 have been rated to 127 plus. So yeah, quite high ratings of late compared to before that. Onto the I just want to note is that Willie Mullins has won this 4 of the last 12 times, and Gordon Elliott has won 2 of the last 3. All right, so half of these races, half of the last 12, have been won by Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott. It used to be common to come into this race off the back of just 1 or at the most 2 runs, right up until 2015. That's all the horse had ever had, 1 or 2 runs. But then since then, 2016, we had Ballyandy, 4 runs, 3 wins. We then had what did we have after that? So a 3 run, 2 wins, 2 runs, 2 wins, 3 runs, 3 wins. So another 1 or 2 more runs is normally now, is the normal to happen now. So yeah, if we move on to the selections in the race, on the odds checker, we have got, yeah, Panic Attack is currently our best price at 10 to 1. We'll go through the ones that I've took some notes on that I really like. Eric Bloodaxe, Joseph O'Brien has got a really good stable of youngsters this year, and Eric Bloodaxe is one of those standout ones. 5-year-old gelding, half brother to Jackadam, who was rated 100 or was rated 170. So could be a future Gold Cup horse, this one. It's in his breeding, and I really like this one. Gigginstown horse, beat Wide Receiver, who was also a Gigginstown horse and was 1 for 1, and beat that horse by 2.5 lengths. Eric Bloodaxe was ridden hard to win that day, so not too sure with the extra half furlong or so, especially up the hill. But Wide Receiver was well thought of, and Eric Bloodaxe went and won that race. I think Eric Bloodaxe is currently 12 to 1. Wouldn't be putting you off backing that one. Do like that horse. Wide Receiver, as we've just said, was beaten by Eric Bloodaxe, but stayed on well, and that was actually closing on Eric Bloodaxe as the line drew closer in that race. And I'm sure the extra furlong and up that hill, Wide Receiver could actually reverse that form, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did. And he's obviously a lot further out in the betting. $25 to 1 for Wide Receiver. But if you go back and watch how he finished that race off, where he was beaten by Eric Bloodaxe, I think you'll agree that the staying distances and the staying tracks might suit. Israel Champ, another one at the top of the betting, currently 12 to 1. Has won 2 from 3, both wins on soft and heavy. So you'll be looking for a bit of ease in the ground for that one. Let's have a look. He was actually 6th on good to soft, so it wasn't as good. As Cheltenham course form, as he won at Cheltenham in November on heavy ground, so he's proven over the distance on the track, which is always a bonus, and up the hill. Won in a time of 4 minutes 19 seconds that day, and the last bumper was won in 4 minutes and 4 seconds, so it does have to quicken that run up by a good 15 seconds, which will be it'll be tough to do, and probably shows you that he's going to have a lot more on his plate than he did in November. Like I said, it was heavy that day, which obviously counts for quite a lot of the time difference, but I still think that Israel Champ is going to have to find a bit more. I also think that I'll be very surprised if we get like soft bordering on heavy for the festival, which I think he'll need. On to Risk Factor, currently priced at 14 to 1. 5-year-old gelding, former 221. Second on both good ground runs and won on soft. Won at Leopardstown on Boxing Day in a time of 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Beating, what was the horse called? He beat, it's also in the betting here somewhere. Beat. Who did he beat that day? That was it. Hamunderson it beat by 6.5 lengths. It was Hamunderson's debut. It was always prominent, finished the race really well. So it's been noted that he has a lot of knee action, this horse, which he will. That means they will suit softer ground conditions. Without one other one, I'll go on to, or two more before my selection. Will be Fernie Hollow for Willie Mullins, 5-year-old gelding form, 2-2, beaten 2.5 lengths by Eric Bloodaxe on his debut. Pulled really hard that day for Patrick Mullins, led 3 out, wandered slightly, and Eric Bloodaxe stayed on. But Fernie Hollow did come back quite late on and finished the race really strongly. Not bad for a debut, to be honest. And you can currently get Fernie Hollow at, just want to check that is still 16-1. Like I say, some of these may have changed since yeah, currently still 16-1 with 365 and others. So yeah, that's another one I wouldn't be writing off to you at 16-1. But a horse I really like, and the one that I am going to put up is another Willie Mullins horse. Is currently 6-year-old, and is the reason I'm putting this one up is he's a proper stayer, and it doesn't matter. The faster the gallop they go here, the better for this horse, and I think they will go a right gallop. They always do. And this is for a horse called Appreciate It. Currently best priced. I'll just double check. This was 16-1, and it is. Oh, actually, it's coming to 14-1 now. 14-1 with 365. I was on this at 16s, but for the sake of the anti-post, we'll go for 14-1. Was third on his debut at Fairy House, which was typical of Mullins horses for this year. Go back, Willie Mullins over the years has been renowned for sending horses out and winning straight away, been ready. This year it's been different. Everybody spoke about it. All Willie Mullins' horses have seemed to need the run this year, and that goes from the Gold Cup contenders like Ken Boy down to these novices and bumper horses. They've all seemed to need the first run. And this one was the same. Third on his debut. Was thereabouts, but didn't win for the first time. Till he was at won on his second race that was over 3 mile. So this horse has run over 3 mile and has run over and won over 2 mile 4. He was 2 mile 4 was on the 27th of December at Leopardstown, where he beat a couple of good sorts, and not just beat them, he absolutely hammered them. He ran really, really well that day, stayed on like an absolute trooper. Still looked ever so slightly green, which is just going to come out better and better each time. He's just going to get more and more settled into his races. If you go back and watch it, like I say, he won with absolute ease. He was, Patrick Mullins was on it that day. He was actually looking through his legs to see where people were. He put the foot down with two furlongs to go, and they just couldn't match him. And I think that'll be absolutely vital come the Cheltenham Hill and the festival. And my tip for this race is Appreciate It at 14-1. I'm going to put £15 each way on this horse, and that is my tip. So 2 tips for today are in the Gold Cup, where we have got Ken Boy, who is best priced at 6-1, I think we said, and in the Champion Bumper we have Appreciate It at 14 to 1. And they are my 2 tips for today. We'll be back with a couple of more. We're nearly finished on these anti-post bets. And again, if you're on in any sort, whether it's £1 or whatever, just to follow, good luck, and I will speak to you all soon. Thank you.